Welcome, I'm Lethal Relief, and today I'll tell you two stories of ordinary women caught in the jaws of danger. Simple moments that spiraled into horror. Listen closely. My name is Claire. I'm 35 years old, and I teach mathematics at a high school in Manchester. I work with teenagers who throw pens, laugh at equations, and leave me with a headache every day. I live alone in a gray apartment block on the outskirts, a cramped flat on the third floor, overlooking a parking lot where the same rusty Ford is always parked. The neighbors are a mix, a young couple with a dog, the bike guy, and Edith, an older woman across the hall, whose window I can see from my couch. A week ago, on Monday, I came back from work, exhausted. Tests to grade, the noise of students, rain at the bus stop that soaked my shoes and jacket. It was 5:10 p.m., and I had a hairdresser appointment at 6 p.m., the first one since the divorce 6 months ago. I just wanted to trim the damaged ends and fix those damn roots that reminded me of how much I'd let myself go after everything. I was standing in the hallway taking off my wet jacket when the phone rang. "Claire, Edith was asking about you again," said Sarah, a colleague from work who lives a floor below. Her voice sounded like she was laughing. "Oh God, what does she want?" I muttered, rolling my eyes. "It's always something." "I don't know, but she seemed upset," Sarah replied. "I told her you were busy, but she wouldn't stop. Be careful. People say she had trouble with the police once." "Gossip," I snorted, though something unsettled me. "Thanks, Sarah." I hung up, feeling irritated. The elevator moved slowly, smelling of damp concrete and something sour. I stood there with my bag, glancing at my watch. The hairdresser was waiting, and all I wanted was to sit down and forget about the day. The doors opened, and there, at the threshold of her apartment, clutching the doorknob, Edith. Gray hair, trembling hands, always in that same dirty sweater. She always had a problem. "Claire, dear, could you help me?" she asked, her voice trembling like something was choking her. "I need to get something from the basement, and I can't do it alone." I looked at her, dirt on her hands as if she'd been digging in the ground, eyes pleading, avoiding my gaze. "Damn it, Edith. Not now," I thought, gripping my bag. I was in a hurry, but something in her tone, that look, that plea, stopped me. She seemed off, more than usual, and the package she mentioned sounded like an excuse. "All right, but quickly," I muttered, forcing a smile. "I have a hair appointment at 6. "Oh, thank you. You're an angel," she replied, but her fingers tightened as if she was scared. "It's important, Claire." We went downstairs. The stairwell was quiet, only the sound of raindrops pounding on the windows. The walls had stains from leaks, and the handrail was sticky with grime. Edith led the way, her steps uneven, as if something was hurting her. "Gossip about the police," I recalled Sarah's words. The neighbors used to say Edith once beat someone up, but who would believe such nonsense? The building's basement was a nightmare, dirty with cobwebs hanging from pipes, narrow passages between concrete walls, a low ceiling that forced me to duck. It smelled of mildew and something sharp, like wet garbage. Edith pointed to a package in the corner, heavy, dirty, wrapped in gray paper next to a pile of junk. I bent down, but stopped. A metal cage stood in the corner, locked with a padlock with clear scratch marks on the walls. Nearby lay old clothes, torn pants, a sweater with stains, as if someone had struggled in them. My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't let it show. "What's that?" I asked, looking up. "Old junk," Edith snapped too quickly, averting her gaze. "Don't mind it, just take the package." It intrigued me, the marks, the cage, but it was none of my business. "Don't get involved, Claire," I thought, lifting the package. It was heavy. Something inside clinked, metal against metal. What's she keeping in there? I wondered, but didn't pry. I returned home, threw my bag on the couch, and rushed to the hairdresser. Hair trimmed, roots fixed, but that evening, something started. At 10:30 p.m., I was sitting on the couch with tea when I heard knocking, short and sharp. I stood up, my heart jumping. On the doormat lay a key, small, rusty, with a note saying 3B. I peeked through the peephole. No one, just a shadow, flickered and disappeared. I called Edith. Silence. The line rang into emptiness. Maybe she dropped it, I whispered, but my hands trembled as I locked the door. In the morning, I woke up unrested. The kitchen chair was by the window, not where I had left it. "What the hell?" I muttered. I checked the apartment. In the hallway, a wet footprint, like a boot print, though it hadn't rained until the afternoon. A drawer in the desk was open. Papers shifted. Someone's been here, I thought, feeling sweat trickle down my neck. At 11 p.m., the phone rang. Private number. "Did you check the basement?" asked a muffled voice, as if from behind a wall. "Who is this?" I snapped, but the line went dead. My heart pounded, breath quickened. "What does this mean?" I muttered, pacing the room. On the table lay the key. I stared at it, as if it might tell me something. I didn't sleep, listened to the silence, waited. At 1 a.m., knocking again, slow, 3 times. The day passed at work, but my mind was elsewhere. After returning, I noticed a smell, something sour like a wet rag in the living room. "That's impossible," I whispered, opening a window. The phone rang again, the same voice. "Did you check the basement?" I didn't respond, slammed the phone down. I couldn't stand it. At 10:30 p.m., I took a flashlight and went downstairs. The elevator rattled, reeked of damp concrete. The basement was silent, only the drip of water from pipes. The flashlight illuminated cobwebs, trash. The cage stood in the corner. Scratch marks glistened in the light. Next to it, sneakers, dusty, old, and a photo, me, walking to work, taken from the parking lot. My breath caught, my hands trembled. I heard footsteps, heavy, slow, above me, on the ground floor. I dropped the flashlight, ran to the elevator, fingers slipping on the buttons. At home, I locked the door, checked the windows. No one. But I couldn't stop thinking. "What's Edith hiding?" I muttered, looking at the key. I called her. Silence. At 11 p.m., I heard a rustling, soft like shoes scraping down the hall. I froze, clutching the key. The latch was locked, but the rustling came closer. I stared at the door. The handle moved, slowly, as if someone was testing it. "Edith?" I whispered, but my lips trembled. The handle stopped moving. Silence returned. But then I heard a creak, like something heavy being dragged across Edith's floor. I couldn't take it. Curiosity outweighed fear. I grabbed the key and a kitchen knife, small, sharp, just in case. I opened the door. The hallway was empty. Only the musty smell hung in the air. Edith's door was ajar. Light from her living room spilled onto the floor. I stepped inside, knife in hand, heart in my throat. Inside, chaos. A toppled chair, scattered newspapers, a cup shattered on the floor. On the table lay a sweater, the same one I saw in the basement, stained. Next to it, a key, identical to mine but with a different number. 2C. I heard footsteps, not in the hallway but behind the bedroom door. "Who's there?" I called, voice cracking. The footsteps stopped, but the door creaked open, slowly with a faint groan. Edith stood there, in her dirty sweater, flashlight in hand, eyes wide open. "Claire, you shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice cold, different. "He's back." Before I could reply, the flashlight went out. Darkness swallowed the room. I heard a rustle, something heavy falling, and Edith's scream, short, muffled. In the morning, Edith's door was closed, as if nothing had happened. I never found out what happened, but every night I hear that scratching. My name is Mia. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a nature photographer living in a small town in Colorado at the foot of the Rocky Mountains. I take pictures of forests, mountains, everything that lives far from people. It's my escape from stress, from bills, from the empty house that's been mine since Matt left a year ago. Last weekend, I decided to hit the trail in the Rockies. I was looking for inspiration for a new photo series and a break from everyday life. Solitude is my element. I've always preferred the silence of trees over people talking about the weather or gas prices. 2 days before the trip, I was sitting at the table, sipping tea, with a map spread out in front of me. A pencil lay nearby, and I was tracing a route when my sister Lena called. "Mia, are you seriously going alone again?" she asked, her voice full of that concern that always annoyed me. "Yes, Lena. I always go alone," I muttered, adjusting the line on the paper. "It's just a weekend." "The weather's getting worse. I heard about storms in the mountains," she replied, and I rolled my eyes. "Come with me and Tom. It'll be safer." "No, thanks," I snapped, pressing my lips together. "I need this alone. I found a new trail. It wasn't there last year." "New? How did it get there?" she asked, her tone sharper. "I don't like it, Mia." "I don't know, but that's what excites me," I said, feeling a thrill. "New trail, new story." "You're stubborn as a mule," she sighed. "Be careful, okay? Let me know when you're back or I'll worry." Sure, I muttered, ending the call. Lena's concern stayed with me. Storms in the mountains are no joke, but the excitement of the new trail won out. I packed my backpack, a camera with a spare battery, a tent, a flashlight, a thermos of coffee, a rain jacket, and set off early Friday morning. The road to the Rockies was quiet, only the wind tugging at the leaves by the roadside. I reached the parking lot at 8. The sky was covered in clouds, gray and heavy, but the forest smelled of wet earth and pine needles. I walked for an hour, taking photos, icicles hanging from branches like icy daggers, reflections of clouds in puddles, moss on stones, until I reached a clearing. The new trail started here, narrow, barely visible between the pines, as if someone had recently trodden it. There was nothing here last year, I thought, smiling to myself. The wind howled louder, fog drifted down from the mountains, but I pitched my tent. The canvas flapped. Stakes drove into the ground with difficulty. My hands trembled from the cold. I unrolled my sleeping bag, ate a peanut butter sandwich, watched the pines swaying in the dusk. "First night on the new trail," I whispered, falling asleep to the rustling of trees, though unease lurked beneath my skin. The weather was turning faster than I wanted to admit. Morning woke me with raindrops drumming on the tent. I got up stiff, packed the tent. The wet canvas clung to my hands. I moved on, hood up, camera in its case. The forest was silent. Birds held their breath. Only the wind sighed in the treetops, and the fog thickened with every step. After 2 hours, I noticed something in the mud. A backpack, torn, wet from dew, lying under a bush as if someone had thrown it in a hurry. It piqued my curiosity. "Someone lost it, probably a tourist like me," I muttered, kneeling beside it. In a side pocket, I found a note in a plastic bag, blurred handwriting but readable. "He's following me, don't go further." Yeah, right. Probably just kids messing around or a prank, I thought, shoving the note into my jacket pocket. I kept walking, camera in hand. Rain dripped on the lens, wind tugged at my hood. The forest fell silent. The fog smothered sounds, only my boots crunched in the mud. I heard a crack, sharp, like a branch breaking under a heavy boot. I turned. Nothing, only grayness between the trees. "A deer or a squirrel," I whispered, but my hands shook as I photographed a vulture on a branch, its black eyes staring right at me. A few minutes later, I saw a wisp of smoke, thin gray, rising above the pines in the distance. Someone's making a fire, I wondered, but the trail was empty. No signs of people. Back on the path, my tracks in the mud were covered with dirt, as if someone had swept them away by hand. By the tree where I'd seen the vulture, a knife was stuck, blade buried in the bark, handle wrapped in cloth. Next to it lay an empty cigarette pack, fresh, not soaked, though it had been raining since morning. Fear clenched my throat. This was no accident. My phone was losing signal. Bars vanished one by one. The screen flickered. "Okay, Mia, stay calm," I muttered, but my breath quickened, hands sweated under my gloves. I turned back. The wind howled, rain lashed my face, the camera swung from my neck. The path looked different. Branches lay across it, rocks shifted as if placed deliberately. I stopped, wiping water from my eyes. Far off, a figure flickered, tall, in a dark jacket with the hood up. My heart skipped again. I hid behind a pine, holding my breath, fingers clenched on the bark. I watched. He stood, facing my way, motionless, as if waiting. Fog shrouded him for a second, but when it cleared, he moved, slowly, in my direction. He saw me, the hood tilted slightly, as if seeking my gaze. "Damn," I whispered, backing between the trees. I reached the ridge below. The road shimmered. My car stood alone in the parking lot. Relief lasted a second. I heard a rustle, like someone running through the bushes below. At the car, I caught my breath. Doors locked, keys in my pocket. Hands shook as I unlocked it. I climbed in, the steering wheel sticky with sweat. The engine started on the third try. I looked in the mirror. The same figure stood at the edge of the forest, not far from the road. My heart stopped, but I drove. Tires crunched on gravel. I didn't look back until I reached home. I locked the door, tossed the camera on the table. The memory card was empty, though I'd taken many photos. The vulture, icicles, everything. On the table lay the map, mine from the backpack I hadn't taken from the car. Someone had drawn a line, a trail I didn't know, and a circle around my house. In the morning, I found a cigarette pack under the window. The same brand, I don't know who it was. Some psycho, a hunter, someone looking for that backpack. I'm scared. I'm going away for a while.